Hello everyone, I hope life is treating you kindly. I'm Lubomira and thank you for joining me today. Welcome to all my crafty friends new and returning. I always look forward to this time of the week when we get together for some crafting fun. Now that you're here, please like and subscribe if you haven't already. By hitting that little bell, you'll get notified every time I post something new and you won't miss out on any of the crafty goodness. Today we are keeping it really simple with a quick card that you can put together in a pinch. It can be used for any occasion and there are a number of ways to add color to it. I'm excited to show you this card, so let's get into the video. Someone mentioned having a hard time or forgetting to use border dies in their card making in a comment in a previous video, and I thought I'd offer a really effective way of using them. To start with, I went ahead and trimmed a strip of one of the pattern papers that the Dollar Tree carries. I showed this paper in a previous video, but didn't use it in that particular project. Since I'm keeping this card very simple, this paper will add that bold pop of color against the white cardstock I'll also be using. A single sheet of pattern paper can go a long way since we'll only be using an inch or two at a time. I also trimmed it to be the width of the card base, which is 4 1/4 inches. Now if you don't have this paper, that's okay. Check your stash for other pattern papers or grab some sprays or watercolors and make your own colorful background. Those of you with some kiddos that like to get messy, finger painting can be an option to make some fun abstract patterns too. There is no wrong way to create the pop of color in this card, so dive into that stash and get creative. The sky's the limit on this one. Next, I took 2 of the Dollar Tree border dies, one of the scalloped and the other gentle rolling hill one. I first lined up the scallop border die with edge of my pattern strip. When I had it straight, I put a piece of low-tack tape to hold it in place and ran it through the die cut machine off camera. Next, I die cut the rolling hill, again placing it on my card panel and then holding it in place with tape before running it through the machine. I didn't pay much attention to where I put the second die, keeping in mind that leaving more of the panel would allow me to trim it later on from the top. Using a combination of liquid glue and some 1mm foam squares, I attached the pattern die cut strip directly to a white card base. To help me attach the strip straight, I placed the card base into my positioning platform first and then added the colorful piece on top, pressing the edges to the platform while keeping an eye on the grid below the card. As I mentioned, I kept this card simple, only adding 2 border dies, but you could keep going and build up several layers. You could change colors and bordered patterns with each layer as you go. This will create interest as well as texture. I have 2 examples in past videos where I used one border to create a background. In both examples, the layers are pretty dense, but you could space out the layers more and add variation. Again, it's just another technique to stretch those supplies. The order in which I added my little details to this card is a little different than my usual card making. I usually place decorative features or details like twine towards the end of the project, but this time I added it before stamping my greeting. I wanted to have a better idea of where the string would sit before adding the sentiment. Does it really matter which way you do this? Not really. The string can always be adjusted. I cut 2 separate pieces of twine and then fastened them one at a time to the back of my white panel using some washi tape. I crisscrossed them across the front of the panel to add a little interest to the card front. The string also adds a little texture to the design. For the sentiment, I used Be Happy from one of the Dollar Tree stamp sets, the one with the bike silhouette. I put the panel into my stamping platform, placed my greeting, and stamped it in black pigment ink. Once I had the sentiment stamped, I applied clear embossing powder to it and heat set it with my heat tool. For those of you who are new to stamping and are wondering why I do this, Dollar Tree stamps are a silicone stamp that don't always coat well when using dye ink. Dye ink tends to bead on them, while pigment ink tends to grab onto the silicone surface much better and create smoother images when stamping. However, pigment ink also takes longer to dry, so rather than risk inky fingers or smudges, I prefer to set the ink with embossing powder as a precaution. Now, if you don't have pigment ink, that's okay. Stamping the images several times can smooth out the look of your image when using dye inks. So don't be afraid of silicone stamps. They still work well and create beautiful images. Moving on, I attached the sentiment panel to the front of the card using foam squares, foam tape, and liquid glue. I popped up the white panel using 1mm foam squares towards the edge of the curve where it would be sitting on the already raised pattern strip, and 2mm foam tape further up so that the front remained level. Adding liquid glue to the foam adhesives allow for a little wiggle time if I need to adjust the placement of my panel. The Dollar Tree started to carry beads and charms for jewelry making a while back. Some of the beads look like dupes of much more expensive glass beads from department stores. Among them, I found this cute smiley face bead, which I thought would be a fun detail to go along with the Be Happy greeting. I tied a piece of the string of the twine already running across the front of the card, double knotting it to make sure it stayed in place. I threaded a bead onto each of the dangling ends, knotting them so that the beads didn't fall off. I made one end slightly longer than the other and cut the extra string past the knot off. As far as decorating, this is all I'm adding to this card. And that's it for this card. You can't get simpler or cleaner than this design. I like these cards because they're really quick to make, yet at the same time very customizable. They make great options for creating gift sets too, something that I like to do once in a while. I also like the idea of using beads as a decorative element. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate you dropping by for some crafting fun. I hope you enjoyed this video as much as I did sharing it with you. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already. And as always, please leave me those comments below. I'm always left smiling after hearing from you. I hope you'll join me next time for another project. Until then, have a wonderful week, and I hope life treats you kindly. Take care. Bye.